What's up, guys? Before we kick off today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about the new 8-9 Academy. The 8-9 Academy is an education side of our gym. In January 14th, we're launching the 8-9 Rebuild program. This program is designed for novice and intermediate athletes. If you haven't trained in over several months or even years, if your diet and nutrition is all over the place, this is the class for you. Also, if you go to the gym, have no goal in mind, no programming, and aren't sure what reps, sets, and movements to be performing, this is also a class that you should be attending. Again, it launches January 14th, and I will soon put the link in our website. I'm really excited about today's guest. He's a dual sport athlete, and you might be thinking football, wrestling, maybe even baseball and track. But what about baseball and short track speed skating, making it all the way to the 2014 Sochi Olympics? We talk about his struggles, his challenges, fighting through knee pain, and his ability to conquer all. We're extremely excited about his pursuit of the majors, and he talks all about it, including his fitness and family lifestyle, in today's episode. My name is Michael Suna, his name is Eddy the Jet Alvarez, and this is the 8-9 Project. Eddy the Jet Alvarez, the Jet.
Michael Suna.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Good to see you again, man.
It's good to see you, too. It's been a while.
I know. Thanks for taking the afternoon.
Of course.
You got back a couple months ago?
I did. Long, grueling baseball season. Had to, go out there, just take a break for a little bit and, come back to family. And
where were you?
I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the AAA affiliate of the Chicago White Sox, so... love that city. Yeah, I could definitely see myself in the future living there.
It's beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
You kind of miss the winters, though, right?
I miss the winters completely.
Yeah, you're down here.
Yeah, it's in the summer. Right. You're there months through April through early September, right. And then then I come back home for the winters in Miami, which is not much of a winter.
Pretty much their summer.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So just so the audience kind of gets to know a little bit about you, I've known you and your family for quite some time. Your brother and I have been business partner, good friends for many years, and your father and mom attended my wedding, so we're all one big happy family. So,
oh, yeah.
And it's funny because you and I have hung out many times, and especially down in the Keys, but we've never really actually gone deep into sports talk, and it's mostly
never.
just,
Yeah, I'm super pumped about this opportunity.
Right,
I was really excited. I think the furthest we ever got was talking about dieting.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I remember.
We'll get into that.
Back in the days, I was saying this story to somebody not too long ago. I was having conversations with Greg Glassman at like 2 a.m, which was his 11 on that side of the coast.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to him specifically about you and our training protocol and diets and so on and so forth, when it came to how do I prescribe this potential Olympic athlete, some type of training regimen without hurting him, yet keeping him safe and progressing in order. So it's been a while since we've been at this, and a lot of has happened since we've kind of separated that I want to talk about. But I want to go back to the beginning, and the reason you have the nickname the Jet for a reason here, right? So I'm curious, and I'm sure our audience is how does a kid from Miami, because you were born and raised here in Miami.
Born and raised Miami.
How does a kid from Miami end up with ice skates on?
Man.
How does that all happen?
I mean, it doesn't.
Right? You started your childhood.
It really doesn't. Do you want to get into the name? Because I'm still kind of embarrassed about the name.
No, I think as a matter of fact, today I had an earlier meeting and I said, hey, listen, man, I need to prepare for this interview that I got with Eddy Alvarez. And he said to me, Eddy the Jet Alvarez. I swear to God, Jose Otero, that came out of his mouth.
That's hilarious. So, basically my whole life, I've always been an active kid ever since I was little. My parents were always active. And then, I had my brother who was always the baseball player. So, I always knew that baseball is gonna be in my life. So at a very young age, I was already swinging a bat, throwing a ball, since I could remember. So then I got some speed skates for Christmas. Not speed skates, sorry. I got some recreational skates for Christmas, and just
the inline skates.
Yeah, like in the 90s, right, the rollerblades. When it was cool to go to South Beach and rollerblade. Yeah, I had some of those, but they were little. I was 5 years old. There were 3 wheels on it, and I remember, just kind of cruising around my living room in them immediately. And from there, my parents would, back in the day, in the 90s, it was cool to go to South Beach and skate. So my parents would always, every Saturday, I won't ever forget this, and I won't ever forget having my skates in the car, already strapped to my feet, opening the car door, smelling the beach air.
And how old were you?
I was like 5.
Wow.
Yeah. This journey that is still being written is it's all started since I was 5 years old. Okay. And I would just cruise around the streets of South Beach.
So you started off, you're already playing baseball at this point.
Oh yeah, T-ball, T-ball, coach pitch stuff. And always going to my brother's games, high school games, and then eventually college, obviously, and then pro for him. So it all started since I was 5.
So you started off that, and your father, I know he has a boxing background. He was in the boxing business for quite some time.
Many years.
Many years, right? And you didn't take on the boxing side. You went on the baseball side, which is your brother, or did you mess around with that as well?
Yeah. No, boxing was actually a big part of my life growing up. I would always go to the gym with my dad. Him being a promoter and manager, me growing up with that, I guess, overlooking me kind of thing. I was a little gym rat.
You can push that away just a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I was always like a gym rat. I was always following him around, and I was with his trainers, his fighters, and I got to a point where I started training boxing, and I really fell in love with boxing, and how active it is. I loved it, and as a very protective Cuban mother can be, as very protective as they can be, Mama Mabel did not allow me to, partake in the boxing business. So
well, you're too pretty to get him.
Good thing we're having a radio show.
She did the right call, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you ventured off and you started speed skating. So side by side now, you're playing Little League.
Yep.
Baseball and speed skating for fun, or did you start competing in some?
No, I was already competing skating nationally at the age of 6.
Not ice skating.
Not ice skating.
We're still on wheels.
We're still on wheels. Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit. So South Beach, cruising around the streets, I get stopped by these 2 ladies who are into recreational skating and as well as inline speed skating, which is basically speed skating but on wheels. Okay. And they basically stopped my parents and are like, have you guys ever heard of speed skating or inline speed skating? And my parents are like, no, what is that? It's like, here's the address, go here. I think your son's gonna be pretty spectacular at it. So my parents took me to this skating rink. I couldn't even tell you where the heck it was, but
I couldn't even tell you. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was 5, 6 years old, and I just fell in love with it. I got my first speed skates, and every day.
Were you a natural? Were you flying by these kids? Is this where the jet came from?
No, the jet name came from the fact that my favorite movie growing up was The Sandlot. Okay. And, the main character was Benny the Jet Rodriguez. Yeah, okay. And then I just so happened to be pretty fast on skates. So the fact that I played baseball and and was a speed skater, and my name kind of rhymed with Benny Rodriguez, Eddy Alvarez.
Right.
I kind of incorporated the name Eddy the Jet Alvarez.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did that for quite some time. So let's fast forward to high school.
Okay.
Right. So high school, you went to Columbus.
Yep. Christopher Columbus,
and you started playing baseball there. So you were on the baseball team there.
Yep.
Were you also now at this point still aggressively pursuing speed skating? Had you met the ice yet?
Yes. So ice skating, I already started roughly around the age of 7.
Okay.
That's when short track speed skating got introduced to me. In high school, as a freshman at 15 years old, I was still heavily partaking in speed skating. Made my first world team, traveled to Suzhou, China for world championships. I was the youngest competitor. And this was like at the beginning of the school year. So I missed I think it was like almost 2 weeks of school before it all started, and I had to call Columbus, had to speak to the principal, and
I'm sure they worked with you. Right?
Yes. So they did. Yeah. So I definitely had a lot of catching up to do, but it was my sophomore year of high school where I was I guess given an ultimatum. It was either to play baseball full time and be a starter over there at Columbus, or continue skating and not be a starter over there at Columbus. Still kind of be a part of the team. But I loved baseball, so at the age of 16, I decided to give up skating at the time. But in the back of my head, I always kind of knew that I was, meant to go back. Mm-hmm. So, went through high school, my sophomore, junior, senior year, committed to St. Thomas University on a full ride scholarship for baseball, where my brother Nick, went and played for a couple of years. And it was after high school where I just wasn't happy. And that's when I sat with my mom and dad and, just kind of wanted to see what, skating or what that journey, where it would take me. So I made the decision after high school to drop my full scholarship and, move out to California to train under a coach that was out there. Her name was Wilma Boomstra, who's from the Netherlands, who's the U.S. national team coach now. Okay. Just to, make my comeback for the 2010 Olympics, and that was in 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that you seriously took speed skating, short track speed skating.
Yes.
As I want to make it to the Olympics, I want to be a world champion.
Oh yeah, and it was always something that as a kid, at 13, 14 years old, I was already racing at that caliber in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I was already racing, your Apollo Onos, your Rusty Smiths, those guys.
Right. So this is the generation that's coming up that eventually will be the stars of this sport.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So the Apollo Ono was, the star of the sport.
He's a couple of years ahead of you, correct?
Yeah, I think he is 30. He's roughly in his mid-30s now.
And you're 28?
I'm 28, okay. Yeah. But he was the one I idolized. Right. He's the one I wanted to be like, because he kind of, even though I like to claim myself as the first inline speed skater to ever transition to the ice, I was also very young. So, no one's going to know, right. A 6, 7-year-old, winning national championships at that age, but still. But he kind of had a similar story too, where he, picked up inline speed skating over there in Seattle, Washington, and did some ice skating as well, and then just at a young age, already was full-time ice skating.
Well, in your defense, they didn't have the distraction of being an actually really good baseball player.
Yeah, that's been my battle my entire life.
Right, it's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like if I need to make a decision, but I'm trying to do both, and you're trying to figure out how to make it work for you.
Yeah, and in my young adult years, it was more of a curse.
Right.
But now that I look back at it now, getting close to 30, it was really a blessing. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, and it's because, and I will hold on to this to the day I die. I just never got burned out. I was always very active. Always did all sorts of sports, you name it, karate, basketball, swimming, boxing, tennis, ping pong, you name it. I was always outside. I was always being active. But doing two sports and taking breaks from both sports to concentrate on that sport at the time always made me hungry for, the next step and when I do go back. So being away, kind of stepping away for a little bit, kind of, never allowed me to get tired of it.
Yeah.
So, which is why I went ahead and started my professional baseball career at 24, which is kind of unheard of.
Right, and I would say that a lot of professional, even collegiate athletes, you could argue that they are dual sports athletes. They're just not very good at the other sports, for instance. And some would argue that golf isn't a sport; it's a game. But you see a lot of these.
I don't think they've tried it because golf is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, they go out there and they participate in what they would call hobbies. You were just very good at this other hobby, so why not pursue it? And then knowing your parents, as I know them, your father especially, which is huge into athletics, he would provide any opportunity he can to try to fulfill those dreams and aspirations that you had in order to accomplish these goals.
Oh, yeah.
So you're trying to live a single life while playing two different sports.
Oh, yeah.
So let's continue down the path of speed skating here. So now you fly out to California and you start training with this team or this coach.
Yeah, this coach.
Correct? Because you're not on the team just yet.
No, well, it was like the it was just like the club that she coached. And it was the Demora Speed Skating Club out in Lakewood, California, which is really close to Long Beach.
Okay.
So I went out there and I actually started living with her. and I'm not kidding. It was like from one day to the next. It's like, yeah, I want to try and make the 2000. This is 2008. I want to make the 2010 Olympics. I want to do this. I had to pack that night. My parents shipped me out to California, and I lived with her. That's on the living room floor.
Did she have several athletes that she was training at the time?
Yes. So she had a whole club, and that's why I wanted to go out there, because my best friend is J.R. Selsky, who's a 3-time Olympian, 3-time medalist. He was out there training, but I've known Wilma since I was little too. So I always knew that I wanted to eventually train with her. The only problem was that I'm living a life in Miami, Florida, with baseball, school, skating, and huge down here. She is in California. Right. We had a whole country in the middle of us. Right, so it was just really hard. So I would always go to camps in the summertime. I would always go to camps to go skate with her. And, I just knew that if I wanted to start this journey to being an Olympian, I needed to start with Wilma Bloomstra.
Being out there with her.
Yeah.
So 2 years you're training, and 2010 is around the corner.
Yeah. So I trained with her for a year and make the U.S. national team. Okay. I got invited to train with, all the top guys in the U.S., and that's in Salt Lake City, Utah. So 2009 comes around, I moved to Utah, and full-time training with the U.S. national team. And, the trials come around for the 2010 Olympics, and I just bomb it, basically. And I was, of course, heartbroken, but that I look back at it now, it's like, what was I expecting? Right. I quit skating for 3.5 years. I got back into it, started racing. I had really good competitions along the way, but I was expected to be top 5 in the U.S. to make it to the Olympics at 19. It just wasn't. Now that I look back at it, it wasn't meant to be. I just wasn't ready. Right.
Right, you needed some more miles under your belt.
For sure. Yeah, and speed skating, short track, and especially because there's 2 disciplines. There's short track and long track speed skating. Short track speed skating, it's incredible because of the G-forces that we go around a turn, that feel that we have to build. And that feel only gets better through years of doing it.
Experience, right.
And that's how you get faster. That's how you get more experience. And imagine, not only do you have to control yourself on one leg going 40 miles an hour around a turn, you have to worry about, 4 or 6 other guys that are skating around you trying to pass you and beat you.
Right.
So I just wasn't ready.
So a lot of it comes instinctually. You can train as much as you can, but you actually got to be out there in the grind and experience all sorts of scenarios.
And it's crazy because we rely so much on our equipment. Our skates is our livelihood. We could be the most trained, we can be the strongest guy, we can be the freak out on the ice who's just an animal, but if our equipment is not corresponding that day, we're probably the worst skater that's ever lived. Right. So it's just a crazy sport.
So 2010, you said you're heartbroken. Do you get the inclination this isn't for me, I'm going to go back to baseball, maybe that's what I'm more naturally prone to do? What's your mindset now when you don't make that?
Well, 2010 comes around, and I'm already battling knee issues. Okay. And I don't know if you remember me getting my double knee surgery.
I do.
And that was in 2012. So
is that just wear and tear stuff?
Yeah, just stuff? Years. I did grow really late, really fast. Okay. And just years of being in a squat position took a toll on my knees. And that's a very common injury in the sport of speed skating, just because we're in this weird crouch position, almost like a wall squat, with our backs bent over our knees. And it just took a toll on me, and I was fighting through those injuries through 2010. But I knew that I needed to take a break from skating because, there was just no, lack of better terms, no way in hell I was going to get to the level I wanted to get to with the amount of pain that I was dealing with already. So I took a conscious decision. I was like, man, I got 4 years till the 2014 Olympics. Let's and obviously my parents are involved in this decision too. I'm going to go back to school and play a year of baseball, see what happens. So, full-time living and training in Salt Lake City, Utah. I get a letter of residence signed from U.S. Speed Skating that I am a resident of the state of Utah, that I'm living here, training here full time, and that allowed me to go and be accepted into Salt Lake Community College, which was 5 miles down the road from where I was living, and try out for that team and that program under Coach Nelson, DG Nelson. Okay. And in my opinion, kind of changed my life with baseball. So, I basically gave him a call. He told me to come by and try out for the team, and I did. I showed up. I had terrible pants on, and I won't forget this. I had pants that didn't fit me, and just like a regular Under Armour shirt, something I threw on, and a bad hat. I showed up, and he goes, "Well, do you play a position?" And I go, "Yeah, I play shortstop." And he goes, "All right, go get some ground balls, I guess, So I go out there, and the assistant coach, starts hitting me some ground balls, and I start throwing to first, and he calls me over, and he's like, "So you want to play baseball?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, well, you're going to be my starting shortstop next year."
Right there.
Right then and there.
On your day one.
Day one, yeah. So.
Well, I will say this much, and I know that you're a humble kid, but we've talked about it for many years, that natural athletes, you're one of them. Dancing, we've seen you on the dance floor. Baseball, any dart game,
I've seen you dancing too.
Well, yeah,
it's a close battle.
I got 2 left feet, buddy. But
they're the most beautiful left feet I've ever seen in my life.
Naturally, you're just a gifted athlete. I mean, your build, your ability, your center of mass, everything that you do just almost comes naturally. And so I'm sure that you go out there and they have this kid that's been playing, even though he's took some time off to focus on another sport, you're probably still very well conditioned. And do you think that being the fact that you were this speed skater, so you had this allure to you, had anything to do with the fact that the school accepted you and brought you in, or were you just not the Eddy Alvarez at that point yet?
I would say I wasn't that Eddy Alvarez at that point yet.
Okay.
Reason why was, I speed skated and I was training with the U.S. national team, but I hadn't made a name for myself just yet at that time. I did go to a junior world championship with the U.S. team 1 year, but I never had World Cup experience. I never had senior world championship experience. I never had any world event experience. So no one really knew.
So what you did, you earned. That was your athletic prowess that got you on that team.
I would say yes, it helped, but I will claim to the fact that I am a perfectionist, and that's something that it came down to everything and anything in my life, school projects, you name it. When it came to my business and it came to sports and speed skating and baseball, I was never satisfied. I always wanted more, as in I was never content with where I was. And I think that's something that a lot of kids these days, they kind of lack is a sense of satisfaction with how they're doing and what things are like. And for me, it was always like, no, like I know and I can do more. And I think a lot of that came was from the fear of living with regret. And that's why that I jumped between sports so much. This is why I've embarked in this journey that I have no idea what's in the future for me. But it's because I want to get to a point in my life when I'm old. Don't judge me if my eyes are getting teary. When I'm old, I want to look back and just be satisfied. Like I did everything.
Right. So you pushed it to your maximum potential, what you're able to. And, this is something that I tell my wife or anybody that'll listen. It's kind of why I pursued football as much as I possibly could. Coming out of college, I wasn't a big-time name by any means. And I fell into arena football, and I did that as long as I possibly could, as long as my body would let me. And now I look back at it, and I still hang out with my high school and some of my college buddies, and they live with regrets. Where I live with, I just wasn't good enough. Because a lot of them still have the what if. Man, what if I would have stayed in college? And what if I would have pursued? And what if I would have driven up to Atlanta and tried out? Well, I did all those things. And now I could say I did do all those. I just wasn't good enough at that time or had the opportunity in order to make it. So I don't live with regrets. This podcast.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like now, at the age of, we're not gonna
right.
spill. We won't spill
early 40s.
Early 40s. We won't spill that kind of content here. But can you imagine looking back right now, and just like not giving yourself that opportunity?
Right.
Like, can you imagine like looking back and being like, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
I fucked up.
Yeah.
Can you imagine looking back and being like, I could have still been an athlete. I was good enough. My body was healthy enough to continue. Who knows what would have happened?
Right.
And, you know, your story's being written, and you know, the dream of being a professional football player didn't quite pan out, but you tried.
Yeah.
And that's what I always encourage. It's like, just try.
Right.
You
absolutely.
fail, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, who cares? Just try, because the last thing that someone should live with is regret, because that is one thing that they can never take back is time.
You know, I might have said this, and I'll share this with you, but I might have said this before on the podcast. I don't remember because I say it so often, and my coaches will roll their eyes when they hear this again, but I have the 2-generation rule. And the 2-generation rule, I won't get into the depth of it, but basically I knew my parents and I knew one of my grandparents, right? So if I look above myself, I obviously know my parents and I knew one of my grandparents. I didn't know my great-grandparents. So let's just call that 2 generations.
Yes, same.
I know my kids, and hopefully I live long enough to know my kids' kids, hopefully. So that's 2 generations as well. Anything above or below that, past those 2 generations, I'll be dead, and everybody else that lived in this timeline will be dead. So whatever your embarrassments or your fears or your insecurities are, who gives a fuck? You're going to be dead anyways.
But it's so true.
It's so true.
And it could be in anything. It doesn't have to be in sports. It's
absolutely.
In life in
anything.
General.
Business, visions.
Picking up girls.
Right.
Who cares?
Hanging out
it's
with
like, yeah.
So what I try to instill in the people that are around me is, who gives a shit if you fail? Who gives a shit if you make errors in the beginning of it? It's only going to take you time to get better. And if you are not ready to launch, you push through that and launch anyways.
Yeah.
A lot of the businesses, a lot of the projects we weren't ready. There's probably more money that could have been raised. There's probably more other
of course
subcontracts that we could have brought in to make the product better. But if you don't put it out there and you don't get the feedback from the audience or the people that you're trying to sell to, you're not going to know what that is. And people are so scared to be embarrassed, especially nowadays with the advent of social media and things spreading and going viral and so on and so forth, that they hold back so much that they don't know what the possibilities, and you and I kind of talked a little bit about it earlier before we got on the mic, is the possibilities out there are endless. And one of my best friends told me, and I might butcher this because it's in Spanish, but de los cobardes no hay nada escrito. And it basically says, there's no stories written of cowards. Yeah. They're always the heroes. They're always the people that end up being legends. So I think you have to have a pair of balls and put beside all the insecurities. Everybody has insecurities. We're our own worst critics. So the minute that you could turn that stuff away, I would hate to live with, like you said, regretting, damn, I should have started a podcast. Damn, I should have opened a business. Damn, I should have became a firefighter. Fuck it, do it. If it's not for you, then it's not for you.
It's not. But I tell you what, and this is something that kind of guided my entire way in sports, is because I'm a living testament of it, is that opportunities are created through hard work. Mm-hmm. But you need to take a chance.
Right.
You need to take a chance, because if you just sit on your ass and and just don't try, you're not giving yourself that opportunity to work hard for something.
Right.
So it's like, man, that's why I tell kids, and that's something in the future, if we do get to that part, I love motivational speaking. I love getting in front of kids and telling them to play 2, 3, 4 sports, whatever God willing, just go out and do things, be active, be bold,
right.
Live life to its fullest, hashtag live your best life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a blink of an eye, and you threw my age out there earlier, so I'll say it again.
Time out. Early 40s.
I turned 44 in May, and in a blink of an eye, I'm 40. It's crazy to me. Just the other day, I was a 16, 17, 18-year-old punk with my life in front of me, and now I'm 44, and now I have several kids and a wife, and I could look back, and sometimes my wife says to me, how long have you lived? Because you've done so many things, silly things, partaking in some movies and so on and so forth, some businesses. But I tell her, look, I'm ready to die because I'm content with everything that I've done up to this point. I think I've lived the life of a good human being. I've done the best that I can. So everything from here on out is a bonus. You know, like, so what? If I fuck it up, I fuck it up. But I'm going to continue to try to push the boundaries of what I'm capable of. So let's fast forward here. You end up playing for Salt Lake City Community College.
Salt Lake Community College.
So
SLCC. Brewing Pride.
Okay. So you 2 years there is what you end up playing?
Just
right?
one.
1 year. Okay.
So I played 1 year. And again, I didn't pick up a bat for 3.5 years.
Right, that's crazy.
You know, I hit over 300. I was kind of all over the lineup. We made it all the way to regionals. Just a game shy of the Junior College World Series, the JUCO World Series. And the season came to an end. My coach called me into the office, and he goes, all right, what do you want to do? And I said, to be honest, I want to go and be an Olympian. I want to go and try. And he goes, all right. He gave me 2 claps, gave a slap on my butt, and he goes, I want you to do this. There's always going to be a spot for you here in this team. So I burned 1 year of eligibility.
Your second year, your sophomore year, and that was going to be my question. What happens when you leave the team? Is your clock still running?
No.
Okay.
No, if you're not a full-time student, your clock
got it. It stops. Okay.
So I've technically only completed 1 year of college, but the thing is that I know that I want this, and in my life right now and the journey that I'm a part of and partaking in, I want this, you know, for now. Eventually school and stuff, if that's in the books for me, then I'll partake in that journey, see what happens from there. But yeah, my freshman year ends, and the coach encouraged me to go and try and make the Olympic team, and you know, this was just shy of 2011. Oh, sorry, this was getting close to 2012, and my knees are not getting any better whatsoever. So I knew I had to do something. So you know, I got surgery March of 2012, and I tore both patella tendons. I went and got them checked, and I had both patella tendons torn, which is actually quite I need that tendon to speed skate.
Yeah. It's kind of important.
Yeah, it's like right under the kneecap, both knees. And I went and visited the University of Miami, Dr. Heckman over there at UM, who deals with all sorts of sports, you know, baseball, pro baseball players, football players, Dolphins. And he goes, well, I mean, looking at your knees, we could try and fix them. But no promises is what he told me. He goes, no promises. I can't tell you that you're going to be 100% back in full skating after the surgery. But, I mean, I couldn't skate either way. Right. So it was like a chance I had to take. I had to do it. So I got the surgery, got on the ice roughly 7 months later, and it was like a newborn deer.
You felt good? Yeah?
No, newborn deer.
Were you in pain?
Oh, I mean, I could barely bend my knees. You know, I was already in full therapy. Right. Around the clock eyes on me already. You know, being a part of the national team, and I was skating with the women because the men were going way too fast for me, and the girls were beating me. Like it was just like one of those things that I was like, well, what am I doing? Like it was definitely a dark hour in my life, because I was scared. I just didn't know what was gonna happen. You know, I have 2 broken knees basically. I'm out here and I could barely go around the turn without wobbling, and I just kept at it. I kept at it just also because of the fear that I didn't know what was next. Right. You know, do I go back to baseball? Sure. Do I go back to school? Yeah. Am I going to live with regret? Absolutely. Course, yeah. So I just kept doing it, kept going at it, hit therapy hard. And then, December of 2013 comes around, and I make my first World Cup and World Championship team, and I did absolutely awful, but I made the team. But
when you say make the team, so
the U.S., yeah.
Right, so they have several.
Yeah, they have a selection process.
So, and do you guys, are there time trials to make the team, or do they just handpick
it's like racing?
the guys?
Yeah, it's just like racing,
right,
and
so
then they take the top. Well, for the World Cup team is 6.
Okay.
Right, so they take the top 6. You race in the U.S. these races, and then it's a selection process. So the top 6 get to go and compete against the world. For these 6 World Cups, because we have 6 World Cups, 1 World Championships, and a World Team Championships. Okay. So for the second half of the season, which is World Cup 4, 5, and 6, I made the team and the World Championship team as well. But I had my first race from surgery. It was a big step for me to make the team, and I got the 5th spot. I was last, but I made the team. Right,
absolutely.
Right? And yeah, it was a grind. Just how baseball is a grind. The process to get to the level or the Olympic caliber, I guess you would say, it was a grind. And I went from barely making a team in 2013 to getting second overall at Olympic trials in 2014 to make the team, the Olympic team.
Oh. And this is an individual event, or this is
individual? Yeah, no, this is all individual. When you race in the U.S. to make a team, it's all individual. Okay. And then you make a relay team or team event of those skaters that made the team. So it's kind of like track in a way. You don't know entirely, right? You don't know entirely who's going to race in the 4x100 relay until the team is set,
and then they play around with that lineup there as well.
Exactly.
So you're on the team with one of your best friends, right?
JR Selsky.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that was a fun experience, right?
It was awesome, because JR and I, same thing. He grew up inline skating and then made a transition to the ice at a young age, but we're the same age, and we used to race each other every year at nationals. He's from Seattle, Washington. I'm from Miami, Florida. We would meet every year at indoor nationals or inline nationals and race every year since we were kids. And then he made a transition to the ice, and then it happened again. We started racing each other on the ice, and I stopped skating. He kept going, and just killed it. Right. It was like he was meant to do that. Yeah. But I had other aspirations and goals, and again, my knees limited me a little bit from the speed skating world. And I look back at it now, it's like, if I would have kept skating, could I have been more advanced than I ended up my career of skating? Absolutely. But at the same time, dude, I'm so content with how everything kind of panned out, because if you look at it, I didn't spend that much time on the ice ever, my whole life. And I was able to compete in the Olympics. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's a stat out there that only 1% of the world only ever gets to experience the Olympics as an athlete, and I'm a part of that, and I'm very proud of that.
No, I think it's an absolute huge accomplishment, and I don't think that people give it as much weight as they should, especially coming from your story. And this is what I find astonishing, is that the 10,000 trial rule, or 10,000 hour rule, is that you got to pretty much just dedicate your life to what it is that you want to accomplish, that one thing, if you will. And I would kind of, if I'm taking the position of JR, some of those other skaters going, this son of a bitch, like, this guy plays baseball, and then he comes in and then he makes the team. Like, he takes my spot and makes the team. So there's a little bit of, again,
growing up, there's a little bit of controversy in the skating world and in the baseball world. Right. In high school, I was playing over some guys, and even my head coach was like, you need to pick one or the other. Right. Like, you need to pick. So I chose baseball. And skating, it was the same thing.
Because guys were getting animosity towards you, saying, this is bullshit, I'm putting in all these hours, this guy shows up and he takes my position.
And then skating was the same thing. There's people in the speed skating world that would have died to get a U.S. national team invitation to train with the team. Right. And, at one point, U.S. speed skating wasn't going to give me that invitation. This was around the time in 2012 where I got my knee surgery. They kind of, outrighted me, like, he's out, kind of thing. Like, there's no reason for him to be on the national team. But the coach at the time, Jae-Soo Chung, who's a Korean, pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and kept pushing, and they finally gave me that invite. And I was not skating yet. I was still recovering from my knee surgeries. I didn't start therapy yet. Like, you had no idea what was going to happen. So I got my invitation to be with the U.S. national team, and look now.
Yeah.
Like, I got my opportunity and I seized it. I did my absolute best is basically what I did. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I did my absolute best. And because of hard work, opportunities were created.
Of course.
And, that's the way I live life.
Yeah, I just gave my son a little lecture the other day, and I told him, listen, there's things that are within your control and out of your control. And out of your control is the way that you were made, the way that God made you, your physical attributes, okay? So there are people that are touched by the hand of God. I played with them. Dante Culpepper. Uh-huh. This guy was put on this earth to play quarterback. And maybe some other sports, but one of the biggest, largest, strongest human beings I've ever seen in my life. And I looked at him and I said, this guy is an anomaly, right? He's one in a couple million of people that have been touched. Then you add in the hard work. And I've seen athletes that go both routes. They're so gifted that they just don't work hard. It comes natural to them. And you don't even know their names nowadays because you have to have that other element. You have both. So I could see how the animosity could build up from some of these guys that aren't as gifted as you were, work their asses off. Family probably takes them all over the world to train and seek different coaches and so on and so forth. And then here comes this guy off of baseball season and the injury and takes my position. So,
but little did they know was the whole process behind that. Little did they know that I would go to school. This was at one point in my life. I would go to school, play with the school team, baseball, go speed skating practice, and then go back to my travel team baseball to practice. I wouldn't get home till like 10 o'clock at night. And on top of that, I was doing homework in the car. And then my day would start again. So it's not like, I've been gifted, and I definitely would say that my coordination has helped me immensely in my sports. But man, I worked my ass off.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a kid, I worked my ass off.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a social life as a kid.
Right.
Like I was sports.
Grinding
Sports was my life. I loved baseball and I loved skating, and I would have loved any other sport I did. But those two were my two passions.
Yeah.
But yeah. I got a lot of animosity, like you said, but it was a process.
Yeah, I bet. And you said it earlier. I think if you put in that hard work when that opportunity shows its face, now you could take advantage of it. And it's kind of what happened to you now. So leading up into the 2014 Olympics, right? So now you're on the team. Does that team all immediately get granted onto it, or you guys have to race again?
We got to race again. Make top 5, make the U.S. Olympic team.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a whole process. The 2014 Olympic trials were the format was changed a little bit. Also, the time that it was raced was changed a little bit because NBC picked up our feed to show on TV, and they wanted to do it as close to the Olympics as possible. So we raced to make the Olympic team a month before Olympics started.
What's the norm? Closer or further?
No, like around September or October. Right. Around October is usually trials, and then you have some months to train, and then February is Olympics. Right. And that's always been the norm, but things were changed a little bit. So I competed in January, early January, and was on Olympic ice early February.
Wow.
Yep.
That quick turnaround.
Well, I was racing on Olympic ice that early February. Okay. Yeah, it was crazy.
When you say racing on Olympic ice, out in Sochi?
Out in Sochi, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that experience.
It was awesome.
Well, okay, so we see all the glamour behind it, right?
Yeah.
The big festivities, so on and so forth. And then, when you watch like E60 and some of these sports documentaries that they do, kind of like the behind the scenes. Tell me a little bit about the life there. How long were you over there in Sochi training, getting ready for it? Where did you guys live? How was your living conditions? And
everything was great for us.
Yeah.
Everything was great. Security was phenomenal. We had these new apartment complexes built as the Olympic Village. These empty apartment complexes that had 2 beds in each apartment. You had your own bathroom. It was awesome. It was like there was no kitchen. There was the layout of the studio apartments, but there was just nothing in there, just 2 beds. So everything was new. Everything was located in the Olympic bubble is what we called it. It's where all the venues, the Olympic Village, like all the recreational stuff, like the housing, like the U.S. House, the Canada House, like to accommodate, the people of that country. It was all in the Olympic bubble. But there was also that was called the coastal village. But there was also the mountain village that was like 30 miles away, where you held your mountain events like bobsled, snowboarding, skiing, those stuff. But it was awesome, man. To be honest with you, the best memory I have was opening ceremonies. That whole process, and walking out, and I have video of it on my computer. And I actually saw it the other day, and just walking out of that tunnel and seeing the atmosphere, and just knowing that like you're part of this, like you're a part of this movement. Yeah, like it was. I can't imagine. Effing believable.
I know that you were in awe of the actual festivities and the moment itself. Were there other athletes that you looked at going, "Oh shit, that's such and such"?
Yeah, Shaun White. Right. Yeah, you name it. I became good friends with Lolo Jones, who was bobsledding at the time.
She was a track athlete, right?
Yeah, track athlete. Yeah, Olympian for summer games and for track, and then does her transition to the bobsledding, and becomes an Olympian in bobsledding, and it's just there's so much. It's crazy.
Do all the athletes interact there in their American village? So do you see them?
Oh yeah. Okay. So in the village, it was all the athletes of like the ice events, so more like the figure skating, the curling, the hockey, speed skating. Those athletes were more. Or were staying in the coastal village, which was by the sea, the Black Sea. And we had our personal massage rooms, we had our personal therapy rooms, we had our, game room in these, buildings. And then every building was a different country. And that was pretty cool, because within a mile of each other, like you have all the countries that are competing against each other. Yeah. And then it was awesome because BMW supplied us with bikes, like just bicycles. Okay, right. And we got to ride around in them, and we can go to different events. If we had an event to get to, we can either take the bus or just take a bike to the venue. The cafeteria was not even half a mile away. It was awesome.
Did you go and see other sports, other events?
I did. Yeah, I went and saw the U.S. Russia hockey game, which was pretty awesome.
That was intense.
And yeah, I mean, I was me and JR were the only short trackers to compete in every distance at the Olympics. And that's 4 distances. That's the 500 meters, the 1,000 meters, the 1,500 meters, and the team relay. So me and JR were literally racing every other day.
And this is 2 weeks long, correct? So you have
this is like almost 3 weeks long. 3 weeks long. But we were there January 30th. Actually, on my birthday. We were there January 30th, and didn't leave until the 24th or 25th. So I was almost there a whole month in Russia. So we did our whole training. We went through opening ceremonies. I was competing about 2 days after. Once it started, it was like go time. It was like every other day I was racing different distances, different I'm trying to think of the word. Different events, like different rounds. That's the word I'm looking for. Different rounds. You had quarterfinals, heats, semifinals, finals, things like that. So every other day, me and JR are racing until the very end, because our relay, where we won our silver medal, was literally a day before closing ceremonies.
What's the competitive ambiance there between athletes? Are you guys very respectful of one another? Are there some grudges between some countries or maybe some individuals? Is there some history between some of these folks? Not maybe necessarily you, but is there, do you walk by each other and mad dog one another? Is there trash talking?
I mean, you played in that kind of atmosphere. Like, what it's like. You have your friendships, but then when it's when it's go time, because know who's who. Yeah,
anybody that
who's
watched,
the dirty.
Right.
Yeah, who's dirty. Who's likes to cheat a little bit, or grab here, grab there, bump. You know those guys. You know who likes to take the lead at certain laps. You've raced these guys. So,
I mean, as a spectator, I remember us pretty much shutting down our South Miami gym and having the Olympics on TV there, and we would pile up a couple hundred people, and we all had Eddie the Jet, and we're jumping out of our seats if somebody bumps you or grabs or so on. So it's quite intense on our side. I could only imagine. And
no, it was intense because it's the Olympic Games. This is as an Olympic athlete, this is it for us. Right. So it's like in the movie with Adam Sandler, there were
Waterboy?
No, the other football movie.
The other football movie with Adam Sandler?
God, Mean Machine, Longest Yard, the
Longest
remake.
Yard, right? Longest Yard. Yeah.
Where he leans over, he's like, No, I'm thinking about the Waterboy. What am I thinking of? Right, we can edit that out. I'm thinking of the Waterboy. Last game of the season, can't hold anything back.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, so it's just like that, man. Like,
what's your I guess your mental set point? Baseball just seems so much more relaxed to me as opposed to going onto an ice that every little millisecond counts. Are you more aggressive? Are you firing out like a linebacker, or are you just?
Well, it depends on the distance, right? Mm-hmm. So the 500 meter is coming out. Full blitz. Right.
It's that quick.
Yeah, it's 40 seconds long.
How many laps?
4.5 laps. Yeah, around a 111 meter track. Mm-hmm. So it's 500 meters, and we're doing it in 40 seconds. So it's guns blazing from the start.
Rush.
Oh my God!
So
we're hitting 40 miles an hour.
Yeah. So fun.
And the 1500 meter, which is our longest distance, is more of a strategic race, more distance. So it starts off slower and it starts to build and build and build. And then the 1000 meter, which is our middle distance, it's considered like the veterans race. It's not a long distance race. It's not a sprint. It's that in between. It's like where the most experienced really succeed. So yeah, it's different strategies you need to know, because when you're on the line and you look left and you see a sprinter that is really good in the 500, not so good in the 15, he's probably going to save his energy as long as possible. And then you look to your right and you see one of the South Koreans who are really good at distance. You're like, oh, okay, he's probably going to go out the front with 8 laps to go, start pushing the pace, build speed. He's probably going to be at top speed with 4 laps to go, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So you see who you're going to race before. You kind of have an idea, and you make a plan or a strategy with your coach. I personally, over the years, my endurance has diminished a little bit. It's not terrible, but I would consider myself more of a sprinter than I was a distance skater. So my strategy was conserve as much as I can, and then make my moves,
gun it at the end.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that last run, the relay race,
the 5,000 meter relay.
Yeah.
Basically all of the U.S. skaters have kind of messed up. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just our discipline. It wasn't just short track. It was also long track. It was like something happened where it was almost like we were cursed. Mm-hmm. Everything and anything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Disqualification, falls, slips, hitting blocks, you name it. It went wrong for everyone. And we were the last event for our sport as a whole, for long track and short track. No one's won medals. We've come close. We got 4th. Like, the closest I got to individually was when I got taken out in one of the races. It was the quarterfinals of the 1,000 meters, and I was there. I was skating out there with Victor On, who was the South Korean who turned Russian, who was considered the best skater that's ever lived. And then Charles Hamlin, who was the Canadian skater who just won gold 3 days ago. Prior to that. Right. So I'm standing at the line, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is gonna be crazy. So the race starts, and 4.5 laps in, I build a little bit of speed. I'm in 3rd place. Charles Hamlin is the Canadian's in 2nd. And we had a Shinky Connect from Netherlands in leading, and I kind of build a little bit of speed and get on Charles Hamlin's outside hip, kind of on the outside, and he just falls which is unheard of. Charles Hamlin does not fall. Like, this guy is a veteran. Like, he's been to all sorts of Olympics. Like, I'm pretty sure this was his 4th Olympics. And he falls, and I'm stuck. Like, once he falls, I'm on his outside. He slides straight into me and takes me out. And that's just kind of how the entire Olympics was individually for me. Like, I just couldn't catch a break. So I knew that going into the relay. Also, the relay, we almost messed up, too. We were in 2nd, and I go for a pass to pass the South Korean, and he just slips and puts his hand down and holds my boot and takes me out. And we didn't think we were going to get advanced. But we got advanced. That's why there was 5 teams on TV. Right. There was 5 teams in the final because we got advanced to the A final. So short track's just an unpredictable, crazy sport. Like, you never know what the heck's gonna happen. You can be trained completely. You can do everything right, but it takes one slip, one mishap, one fall, one push, someone else fall. To take you out, and you're done.
Luck has such a huge role in that sport, right?
It's crazy. But you can kind of create yourself better luck by just staying away from everyone. But that wasn't me. That wasn't my style. That just wasn't what I was trained for.
Right. So I could only imagine standing on top of that podium, right?
Oh man,
silver medal.
It was crazy because it was a crazy race from the beginning. Right. I mean, the gun starts and then immediately 2 teams fall down, so it's just 3 teams out racing, and we set an Olympic record because it was kind of strategy. Like, when a team falls and you don't want them to catch up, you go fast so they never catch up to you, because the race is 45 laps. It's enough time for 4 guys to catch up to a group. That's what happened. It's like, 2 teams went down, and then Russia, us, the U.S., and Kazakhstan, we took off. It was just, and at some point, Kazakhstan broke off, and it was just us and Russia, and we were just going back and forth between the lead. Like, we kept passing each other, and it's a pretty crazy race. But it came down to 2 laps to go, and we put our best skater out there, which was J.R. Selski, and he was going against possibly the best skater that's ever lived on short track speed skates. And when you kind of give that kind of guy the room that he had to play with, it was kind of over for us.
Tough to beat.
Tough to beat. Right. And plus all the allegations of the Russians, being
that unfolded.
Taking sports or enhancement drugs and all that. But
did they ever strip them of that or no?
No, they haven't stripped them. That Victor Ahn guy who raced, who won a medal in every distance at the Olympics. He was banned from the Olympics.
Lifetime banned?
Yeah. Like, he can never,
at that age,
he can never skate ever again in the Olympics.
Have you seen the documentary Icarus?
Oh, phenomenal documentary. Pretty crazy, because just thinking about me, that I was there.
That's so crazy.
It's like, man,
right?
It probably passed right by me, and I just didn't notice.
Didn't even notice. If you guys haven't seen Icarus, you got to check
it out. It's a must-watch documentary.
It's unbelievable. Okay, so wrap up the 2014 Olympics. I want to ask you a little bit about the business side of the Olympics. So we see, obviously, all the athletes competing are quote-unquote amateur athletes, but the bigger ones, the more prominent ones, the more, I guess, successful ones have sponsors.
Yeah, so, like your Michael Phelps, your Apollo Onos, face of a sport usually.
Right. They do well for themselves. They have financial backing and so forth.
That's very rare.
Yeah, very rare. Right, because you can almost name all of them, right?
Exactly.
There's not a lot of them, and then there's hundreds of Olympiads. We have a couple in here that train. We're right down the road from the Coconut Grove Sailing Club, and they come here during the off season. They do their sailing as well, and Anna Tunnicliffe used to be one of our members as well. There has to be a lot of hardships and sacrifices financially for you have the support of your family, but I'm sure a lot of these folks don't have that support.
No.
So you see them working. I know that Home Depot has a program.
Used to not anymore. Yeah, not anymore.
Okay.
It's really tough for us, but at the end of the day, we do what we do because not for the money, but it's more for the pride and the glory. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we do get funded a certain amount, but it's like I've been living on a minor league salary my entire life, or my entire professional athletic career has been on a minor league salary. We basically get money from the USOC, which is the U.S. Olympic Committee, basically like a monthly salary to live, to train, to eat, and that's about it, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can make good money Olympic season because everyone wants to be a part of the Olympics, and so that's when the sponsorship comes. If you're a pretty well-known athlete in the sport, you can get some good opportunities in making money, but the problem is that the Olympics are only every 4 years. What happens the other 3 years after that?
So it's not something that you're going to make a livelihood out of it. You can make some supplemental cash, but you need some stable income, and especially if you have a family at that point, right?
Yeah.
So these older guys,
it's not something that I'm going to live comfortably for the rest of my life doing. So
how do you?
It wasn't that I wanted to get out because of that. But that definitely had a little bit of an influence of going back to baseball again.
Is that how you say goodbye to the Olympics? You kind of just grab your ice skates and your silver medal, you hang them up, and you say,
actually,
now.
So we had one more competition after the Olympics, and I knew that I wanted to go back to baseball, but I didn't have to really rush into it yet because that's a different process. But anyways, I knew we still had one more competition after the Olympics, which was World Championships. It was after the Olympics, so it was kind of loose. Not that no one cared, but it was just whatever. It's World Championships. We just raced in the most amazing races in our lives, at the Olympics. So went to World Championships, and I remember after I finished my last event at World Championships in Montreal, Canada, I tied knots on my laces to tie the left skate to the right skate, and I hung it in the locker room, and I took a selfie with it, and I still have that selfie. No one's ever seen that selfie, but it was kind of like I knew that's it.
You're done. That chapter.
That chapter of my life is over because I did what I wanted to do. I became a top level athlete in the U.S. in a sport. I reached the highest caliber in a sport, which is the Olympics. I got to race my all and leave my heart out on the ice. And I came back with some silver, with a silver medal, which is phenomenal. But it's not entirely what made me happy. I think it was just being there, though. I mean, if I look back, I'm 7 years old dreaming of going to the Olympics. And at 24, I got to complete that dream.
The journey itself is what everybody always talks about.
Exactly.
So you leave that, and now 4 different, tell me if I'm wrong here, 4 different minor league baseball clubs, right? So you come out, how does that transition happen? Hey, I want to play baseball again. Do you go back to school and start playing in there? Or how does that whole thing
So that's when I contacted my coach from the 2011 season, DG Nelson, in Salt Lake Community College. I contacted him and I'm like, yeah, I want to come back. And he goes, all right, do you want to come back to school and play in college? And I said, no, I would rather, go straight to professional because, I'm already 24 years old. I would rather just do this professionally, just go and try. And he goes, okay, well, this is what I can do for you. He had a friend in the scouting bureau who set up a tryout for me in somewhere in Arizona. I forgot the name of the city. Anyways, a blind tryout. He sent out an email saying, hey, a 2014 Olympian wants to come back to baseball. Had a pretty good year, so-and-so in 2011. If you're interested, go take a peek at him. He'll be out there at 1:30. So I showed up to this community college out in Arizona, met the coach. He's dragging the field for me. It's literally just me, the coach, and then my longtime friend who's friends with my brother, Carlos Castillo, who's played baseball. He was kind of my mentor. We show up, and it's just 3 of us, and I'm sitting there in the dugout like, what? Okay, no one's coming. Right. And next thing I know, 1:30 rolls around, and I see a few cars pulling in. 1:40 comes around, and I see more cars pulling in. It was like 12 professional teams out there, 12 professional scouts out there to just watch this no-name ex-speed skater tryout in baseball. So I did like the whole thing. I did the 60-yard. I got my time. I think I ran in a 6.5, which is pretty good for my humongous legs back in the day.
Right.
Then, I caught ground balls. I hit BP. Talked to some of the scouts after that. The Marlins invited me to another tryout at Marlins Park, which was like 2 weeks later. The Cardinals invited me to go to Jupiter to do like this other thing in front of I don't know who. I went out to Jacksonville, the AA squad over there for the Marlins at the time. Andy Barquette was the head coach. I worked out with him. It was looking really good. Like I thought I was gonna get it. And then in Arizona, Carlos Castillo, he was like, "Hey, let's stop at the old spring training facility, the Chicago White Sox facility. Let me go say hi," because he was an ex-major leaguer for the White Sox.
Yeah.
So we go there. We see one guy. I try out in front of him, and he's great. He's got some talent. Speed skater. Blah blah blah. The whole story. And literally, the June draft comes around, which is the college draft, and I get signed like the day after the draft. So I was already on my way to Arizona the next day.
Signed by who?
The Chicago White Sox.
Okay. So you fall into the White Sox organization?
So I fall into the White Sox organization because I told myself if I get an opportunity, the first person that freaking calls and offers me a pack of catch-ups, I was going to take it.
Right.
So I did. The Chicago White Sox says, "Hey, we really liked what we saw over there in Glendale, Arizona, and we really think that, you'd be a good fit for us. Your experience in another sport, it could, kind of rub off on other players too." And I was all for it. I was like, an opportunity? Yeah. Where do I sign?
Right. This is 2015, correct?
This is 2014. This was
this is right after.
5 months after the Olympics.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 5 months right after the Olympics, I signed my professional contract with the Chicago White Sox.
So you played 2014 through this past season.
Yes.
4 different teams, right?
Yeah, so I played in 2014, which was like basically half the year of June, because the season starts in April. And then the player draft is in June. It's in the middle of the season. So I only played half a season in 2014. And then 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 I've played.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've played I kind of came up the system extremely fast. I was already in AAA in 2016. I was already in AAA. So I signed 2014. 2015, I was in high A, advanced single A. And then in 2016, I started in double A and got promoted to AAA. And just kind of been battling my ass off.
All at shortstop?
Shortstop, second base.
Okay.
I actually played a game at third base this year, which I never thought in my lifetime I'd do, but I did it. And I've told multiple coaches that if they want me to play outfield, I'd play outfield. And I'll be the coffee server if I have to make it to the big leagues. But no, I'm gonna grind away. I've been given a lot of opportunities, and again, I can only control what I can control, and that's work hard and do things right, and hopefully some stars align for me.
How popular is it for 28-year-old minor leaguers out there?
I play against all sorts of ages at the level that I'm at now. There's quite a few stories of 31, 32-year-olds breaking into the big leagues after 10 years in the minor leagues.
Right, yeah.
I've only done it for 4.5 years.
Right, and this is where I'm getting at. Earlier, you mentioned that you never really quite got the burnout. You still seem as enthusiastic as you would if you were 24 years old coming into it. So you're still
I mean,
fresh.
I always get I read it on the paper. It's like, oh, this kid's about to be 29 in a couple months. His numbers are okay. Pretty good numbers. Kind of fell off the prospect rankings because of his age, and doesn't have, is primarily a shortstop, second baseman. I read that shit, but at the end of the day, it's like, have you tried facing 100 mile an hours after 4 years of not picking up a baseball bat? It can be challenging.
Absolutely.
But again, I hate tooting my own horn. That's like it's like one thing I absolutely hate. But I work hard, and if I do have success in my season, it's because I don't half-ass shit.
Right.
And that's the truth.
And I think that's the only way to make it, and I think that's where I made my decision of arena football was I didn't feel it anymore. I got to the point where I was so banged up, and these types of sports at this level, if your heart's not into it, there's no way to fake it.
Exactly.
There is no way to fake it. You might as well just hang it up. And this is what I love seeing is how enthusiastic you still are. And even before we got on, you said, Mike, the end goal, the story gets written when I make it to the majors. And you're still as enthusiastic as you were when you were a little kid to make it to the majors. So that's where we're at there. What's life after baseball, after sports? What do you see yourself? Have you thought about it? Have you?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I'm definitely coming to the age where, and again, baseball is a funny sport and a business at the end of the day. If it's a business, like I can't take anything real personal. I chose the path I wanted to take, and I did it, and it has its negativity. I am 28 years old. Still haven't broken into the big leagues. My last year with the Chicago White Sox, my contract's up this year, and then I become a free agent. Who knows what's gonna happen? And of course, I've thought about it. Like, what's next? Like, do I don't know, try and take over my dad's business? Do I? Who knows? But I want to inspire. It's always been a goal of mine is to inspire, and I love being a part of journeys, and motivational speaking. I like to motivational speak, and if that opportunity presents itself, I'll more than gladly accept it. Or do I go into TV? I've had ideas about starting a TV show, but that's like you said, a heck of a business to get into, and so. It's tough, but I think I'm not going to be able to truly think about that until my athletic career is over. And I don't think it's going to be over anytime soon, because if I could still be an athlete, if my body allows me to be an athlete, I'm going to be an athlete. And that's the way I think about it. They say that an athlete dies twice in their lifetime. Once when their athletic career is over, and then the second time is when it's time to go. So I'm going to prolong that as long as I can, because I know when I get old, I don't want to look back and be like, Jesus Christ, I could have still done it. I could have still done it.
I like the whole dying twice, because it did take a while and many athletes, whether it's at the high school or college, professional level, when you play that long, it is very difficult to walk away from the sport, no matter what your success rate was at that point. So I think it's the take-home message from this is not having any regrets and leave it all out there. I do think that you have, I said this earlier, and I know that you blush when I tell you this thing, but I do think that you have the personality and the capabilities of doing something on the media side of it. I mean, just throwing up
and I would love to, for sure.
I went to Tony Robbins and Unleash Your Power. And one thing that he continued to preach was laser sharp focus. And I think that's what you have, is laser sharp focus on making it to the big leagues. And at the end of the day, whether you make it or not, you know that you gave it your all to get there.
Absolutely.
And that's extremely important when it comes to this. So on the inspiration side, you have a great story. I think that kids, even some adults, will love to listen to that and see where you came from and see your background and how you accomplished all those goals.
A Miami kid, completing his dream on Olympic ice is not unheard of. And that's what I try and tell. When I did do a little bit of motivational speaking in 2014 after the Olympics, before I started the whole baseball career, I would go to schools and I'd talk to them, and I'm like, don't be afraid to dream. And if you dream big. You might fail. You might fall on your ass, and you might hate life, once or twice. But it's like, don't live with regret. And that's kind of what I always tell people.
Yeah, shoot for the stars and you hit the moons. I heard something the other day that said if you make your dreams small, you'll hit them, but you won't feel accomplished at that point.
Satisfied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't I don't want a piece of the cake. I want the whole thing.
And you could afford it too with your little body fat percentage.
We'll see. Michael Suna.
It was great having you, man. I appreciate you coming by and jumping on this and, you know, sharing some perspective into the life of an Olympian, a baseball player, getting a little bit emotional with us and showing that
a little bit. Yeah, I did. You got it out of me.
I just realized when you know, I'm like, man, I got to get tissues here just in case we get there.
Yeah, well, you got there.
It's what's the line from Jerry Maguire when he tells him, "You're not going to make me cry." At the very end when he hands him the contract, you made me cry. You made me cry.
That's funny, man. No, thank you for having me and allowing me to, I guess, vent. Because at the end of the day, this is kind of a venting mechanism for athletes and whoever you bring in here, because, you know, you allow us to share our stories and for people to understand us. So, whenever you want me back, man, I would be more than happy to. We don't have to talk baseball, speed skating. We can shoot the shit.
We got part 2 of this, brother.
Done.
Hey, good seeing you, Ed.
You too.
Thank you, man. All right, guys, so there you have it. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Your feedback is extremely important to us, so please leave a comment under this social media post. We promise to read all the comments and answer all the questions. Remember, the louder the voice, the clearer the message. Thank you, guys.